Recently, I received an unusual recipe. I'll call it that, unusual. I've never heard of this before. It's an almond ricotta cheese cake. Not a cheesecake. I have on my website a cheesecake, Roma cheesecake. That is a real cheesecake made with ricotta cheese. This is a cake made with flour and leavening, but there's ricotta cheese in it. And she said they've been making this in Italy for centuries. I'm intrigued by it, so I want to try this. So let's make this almond ricotta cheese cake. First thing I need to do is get my raisins soaking in rum. Everything is in metrics that she gave me, but I calculated the American units. I believe these are called the US customary units officially. These are American measurements. So this is 100 grams or about 3.5 ounces of golden raisins. And then I have here 120 milliliters, about 1/2 cup of dark rum. This is Myers rum. And I'm just going to set this aside and let those soak for a little bit while I do my almonds. In the meantime, I've heated my oven to 180 degrees centigrade, which is about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have here again another 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of whole almonds. And I'm going to roast these in the oven for about 10 minutes. While my almonds are roasting, I prepared a 9-inch or 23 centimeter springform pan by spraying it with a non-stick spray, a cooking spray like Pam, mostly to hold the parchment paper in place. And then I cut parchment paper to line the bottom and the sides. So now here are my almonds now out of the oven. These roasted for 10 minutes. This, by the way, is a neat thing. This is called a pizza pan gripper or pizza pan pliers. I love this thing because I can use it to grab a baking sheet. It makes it so easy to take a hot baking sheet out of the oven without having to put gloves on. You can get these on Amazon. So I'm going to let these cool down now, then I have to break them up. My almonds have cooled now, and I put them in a Ziploc bag. I'm going to break these up with my whacker spoon. I'll put the name of this online. They're expensive, but they're great to have. You could break these up in a food processor. I have so few here that I'm thinking I'm just going to break them up this way. This is how she says she does it. She just breaks them up in a bag. And now that I've got a nice surface to work on here, I don't have to worry about denting the wood. So there are my almonds now. The idea is to reduce them down to small enough particles that they'll be nice in your cake, but you also want some little bit larger chunks that'll add some interest to the texture of your cake. When she described this cake to me, she said that the basic cake is the cake ingredients with the ricotta cheese, but that there are a lot of variants. So I'm going to be using, you saw, golden raisins. I'm going to be adding the almonds. I'm going to actually add some lemon juice with some lemon zest. You could shred some apple if you wanted to put that in there instead of the lemon, or you could maybe cut up some dried apricots. If you don't want to use almonds, you could use roasted pecans. There's a lot of possibility for variations in this recipe. I set up my stand mixer and I'm going to start my batter here. This is, or these are 3 large eggs that are at room temperature. They've been sitting out in the shell for a while. And then I have 200 grams, or about 1 cup, 7 ounces of just white sugar. You can increase this to 1.5 cups. It's about 300 grams if you want a really sweet cake. I'm going to blend these two together until it's nice and blended and kind of frothy. Okay, so I beat those eggs for less than a minute. I'm going to be adding my ricotta cheese. This is 300 grams or about 10.5 ounces. I'll put that in there. And then I have 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of whole butter that I've melted. Good. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 2 tablespoons of my lemon juice. Again, that's from my neighbor's tree. She never uses her lemons. And then I took the zest from that lemon. I'm just going to blend this up. I beat this up pretty well until I broke up all of that ricotta cheese so that it's no longer lumpy. It took about a minute. I'm going to be adding, this is 60 milliliters, 1/4 cup of buttermilk. This is to provide acid along with the lemon. I'll explain that in a moment. I'll explain the difference between baking powder and baking soda while the cake is in the oven. And then I put my raisins in a sieve and strained out the brandy. I put my raisins in there. Rum, rather. This is rum. But I'm going to hold on to this because if I need to add a little more liquid to my cake to get it the way that I want my cake batter, I can add my rum. I want to give this a quick mix and then I can turn to the dry ingredients. Okay, I'm ready to turn my attention now to my dry ingredients. I have here 300 grams, which is 10.5 ounces, or about 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of flour. I'm using all-purpose flour. You can use cake flour if you would like. And then I have 1 teaspoon, if you're measuring by weight, it's about 5 grams of baking soda, not baking powder. Again, I'll explain that in a moment. And I want to get that all blended in real well. You could sift the baking powder, the baking soda and the flour together if you wanted to. By working only with soda, you kind of have to work quickly once the batter is put together. If you work with the baking powder and flour, supposedly you have a little bit more time. All right, here's my almonds. I'm going to get those in there, my chopped almonds. Get those blended in a little bit. And then here's the batter that I mixed up earlier. Oh, and by the way, I've kept my oven on at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, that's about 180 degrees Celsius, because I'm going to bake my cake at the same temperature. So I might as well just keep the oven going. Okay. Now I want to get this blended together. I didn't do this in the machine because I just want to get this mixed up to get all the dry ingredients wet. And this is where I judge my batter. If it looks too thick, I can add a little of my rum to water it down a little bit. And I'm going to say, yes, that's a little bit too thick. So I'll put in a tablespoon or 2 of my rum. You could add brandy to this if you want. You could add more buttermilk. Okay, I'm liking that. It's not runny, but it is a moist batter. Here's my prepared pan. Then you can just push this down and kind of even it out. What some people like to do is just stamp it or shake it to even it out. I think this works best. I can push things around. Okay, I got one more step to do before this goes into the oven. I have here some sliced almonds. I'm probably not going to use all of this, but the package is the package is 2.25 ounces or 63.7 grams. I just want to decorate this top a little bit with sliced almonds. Again, this is an almond ricotta cake. So let's show them some almonds. Get a little bit more on there. Seeing batter falling down. This, by the way, tastes real good. Switch hands because I had that other finger in my mouth. Okay. That is ready to go into the oven. My cake just went into the oven. It's going to bake, I think, 50 to 60 minutes. That's what I'm estimating for the baking time. I always go by temperature. When it comes up to close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, 93 degrees Celsius, that's when I know the cake is done. Now I wanted to take a moment, as I said I would, to talk about baking soda versus baking powder. The original recipe called for 16 grams, which is about 4 teaspoons of baking powder. But the original recipe had no ingredients in it to contribute acid. In my case, I'm using lemon juice, I'm using lemon zest, I'm using buttermilk. All of those have acid in them. So I substituted with 1 teaspoon of baking soda. The reason why I can do that is because baking powder is a combination of baking soda, which is bicarbonate of soda, and some sort of acid salt, like cream of tartar, which I think comes from tartaric acid. There needs to be an acid for the sodium bicarbonate to react with to produce bubbles, which causes the leavening, the rising. That's how you get a cake. In my case, because I'm providing the acid with ingredients, I don't need baking powder. So I used baking soda. And there it is, fresh from the oven. Hopefully you can see. I mean, it's kind of hard to see because of all of the sliced almonds on top, but the dough was the batter that's nicely browned. My almond slices here are just starting to toast nicely. I'm really excited about this. I'm going to let this cool now in the pan about 5 minutes. Then I'll pull my ring off and let it cool thoroughly, and then we'll be ready to taste it. I'm ready now to cut into my cake and see what I got here. Very tender. I can tell by how the knife goes through it that it's really tender inside. And let's see. Oh, beautiful. I wanted to avoid the paper. Isn't that pretty? Look at that. That is a nice piece of cake. And then what I did for garnish is I put a little bit of powdered sugar in a little sifter, and I'm just going to dust that lightly. I don't want to put a lot on there. Just like that. Oops, there goes too much. Okay. Now I'm ready to see what this tastes like. I'm really curious to see how this is going to taste because I've never seen anything like this before. Moist. Wow. Sweet, but not overly sweet. I don't know how to describe that. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, it's a delicious cake, but it's like there's so many flavors in there. You can taste the almond. I got a bit of the raisin, a bit of the rum. That is a delicious cake. So excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my almond ricotta cake. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.